for a non-academic setting for the community. And so that's why I'm like definitely going to be getting your contact info and try and get those Google Docs, because we've been starting to develop our own resources también, and if we can merge that together, we won't be reinventing the wheel and duplicating work and be a lot more efficient faster. So
right on. Yeah, no, that's great, and that sends a signal that there's urgency for us to get the plan out. And there's already, like I said, the Raza Studies Now website already has a lot of good resources. And there's also a need to what Gloria Zaldúa calls amasamiento, like gathering it together and maybe having it at one hub. And that's something that we haven't done yet. I like your comment about that, because even just the being self-conscious about how Chicano studies, Raza studies circulates. It's, I said in the last session, the way I was introduced to Raza studies is my brother went to junior college, Santa Monica College, and brought home the books. And so that's something to be self-conscious of. Like, why is it that Chicano studies is one of those fields that, oh, you know, my son came home and brought something from the class, or my daughter started talking to her younger brother or younger sister. And Chicano studies is always something that travels outside and goes to the house. It reminds me, this year, you know, in Los Angeles, we celebrate Mexica New Year. This year is the One House. And Gloria Zaldúa, the Borderlands was written in the One House too. And the One House is not just the house, but it is the house. It's our homes. But it's also a container. Anything that contains, and the ultimate house is the body. But the One House, one being this like a generative, like a seed type of thing, is very, signals self, there's a lot of self-evaluation that needs to happen. A lot of people right now, even though we're a collective, we're looking internally, like, and it's a strengthening move too. But I want to connect it to your concept of, you know, Chicano studies that goes home and travels. Yeah. Here and then we'll go here.
Yeah, about your comment, that's something that I thought about a lot too, just going back home and not to engage in the community with this knowledge that I'm learning. But I know in McAllister we have something called the Experimental College, and I shouldn't say we, but there were students a few years ago who applied for funding from the school to start the Experimental College, which are completely free classes that they don't have on campus. They try and have them in other places throughout the Twin Cities, be that like the Lock Literary Center or other like theater companies, and they're completely free to the community. And students can teach them, professors at my school will teach them, because community people will teach them, and it's funded by McAllister. The only catch is that like we have to keep track of how many. There has to be at least one max student at each workshop to ensure the funding. But that has been, the catalog for this new session, all the teachers are not at all affiliated with McAllister in a formal way. So it's super exciting. It's been built a lot over the past 3 or 4 years.
That's really interesting. That's a 60s concept from the 60s that I know in California. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but in Santa Monica, the first Chicano studies classes happened because the students organized through the experimental college. So it's kind of funny that there's like a circle going on. But thanks for that resource. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just want to add real quick that, you know, like with Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico, it's so predictable, right? Especially us from California that went through 187 to 09. It was just so predictable. The ride is so predictable. And I'm sorry, what was your name? Christopher. That's so right on in regards to like, you know, the parents, right? And my point is that it's about our issues. It's about centering our community, not always reacting to the right. You know, even though that's we're under the gun. And that's what I love about that. And I think that's very, very powerful for all of us in regards to ethnic studies, Chicano studies, progressive people, to actually, you know, that whole concept when truth is powerful, right? Knowledge is powerful. And it's like, these little right-wingers, they're just like fizzling out because in regards, this is anti-democratic, this is anti-education, and I think it's people like us that we really need. Like, I love Elias and his crazy friends from Santa Monica, because in the midst of all this, okay, we're fighting for ethnic studies in LA Unified School District, right? Which is such an awesome feat to put on, but that's what we have to do. Like, do what you all do. Like, no, we need to go out there and get aggressive and talk to people and say, no, this is about our children, right? About educating. So, and I just think that it's, again, you know, my whole thing is like knowing history and knowing what's already happened, whether it's like English only in California, English only blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's such a copycat, you know, situation. So it's I think it's up to us to be clever, smart, and aggressive to combat these people, or even, this is a segue, even to like put up to like in Georgia those laws that they passed that were anti-immigration. Man, the crops rotted in the fields, right? From being racist, you know, and like they did that, and nothing. So anyway, that was my comment.
Timothy, I'm sorry, you've been waiting, and then we'll maybe wrap up with last comment.
A few comments and questions. There's 2-year networks. How can we build networks? I don't know if you're aware of RiseUp.net.
Of what?
RiseUp.net, they give free
Yes.
listservs and things like
Yes.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And just something to think about with the 12 million new possible immigrants that might be naturalized. New immigrants tend to identify as, Republican or American per se, so how that might present a problem to us as studies. And in Texas specifically, how about the concept of Afro-Mestizaje, given the nature of attack on both Raza and African American studies, both to increase mobilization and solidarity. I know we could collectively join, that's been a struggle for a long time. And then lastly, you asked for if we needed help. Maybe you could help us out finding out, like if the Koch brothers or the Tea Party or somebody like that who's contributing to Dan Patrick, who's pushing.
Oh, yeah. Texas bill. And what's the Texas bill called? Or is it?
SB 1128 and HB 1938.
Wow. Yeah, it's important to combine movements and resources. Definitely.
That's so 1938. So one of the things that I'm working on is I'm working with a church. They're important. It's a non-denominational, very radical church. They're all about the love of Jesus. And one of the reasons it interested me was that I had a transgendered housemate that would go to church there. And I'm like, what the heck is going on in that church that my transgendered male to female housemate wants to go there? But one of the things that we're talking about, because the churches are the most segregated place in America, which is kind of ironic, right? But we're looking to create a speakership series to begin have these conversations in the community, so that we can talk about these different histories, different values, and just our different experiences. Because we don't have those conversations at the level of the community, right? We don't even know our neighbors very often. The other thing too is I think we can use, to the extent that we can use Google Chat to keep talking with each other. There's some amazing work that's being done so that we can create this conversation. Is it called hyperspace? I forget what it's called, but. And the third thing is, I think if we can begin to put together a list of resources, because there's a lot of visual videos that are cool and funny. There's one that's called "How to Solve the Illegal Immigration Problem in the U.S." By what's the name of that cat? The Pinky videos. And there's a lot of amazing stuff. And actually, even Rudy Acuna is right now asking, "Are you working on anything?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm putting together a book about 130 pages long." Of sources available online about Chicano history, right? Because the visual is the way that we operate. So if we can create that kind of resources, because we all have resources that we all draw upon, that we all can link to and use as resources, then that would be cool.
And that's an important thing that, high school students are not college students. You can use similar documents and materials, but it's almost like being very, that would be an evolution if we are very extra cognizant of that. I think Tucson's doing that a lot too. They're being very specific about their choices.
The Pinky videos are radical. I mean, you can just get educated in radical consciousness by just these two cats. Like it's animation videos. Yeah, the Pinky videos. Amazing, like mind-blowing stuff. We can learn about everything.
Everything.
What's that? Everything, homie. No, did you what?
Well, we got one last comment. I think there was a question as to what is the role of NACS in this whole thing. I think part of it, there's a business meeting following this up, and I think you guys ought to go in and present, at least inform about the plan and what you guys are doing. And the other one, in the long term, for those of you who are either into the academic world type of thing, either, you know, join your own foco in Southern California or their own caucus type of thing, then you can, from within the structure, you can begin to impact it. Well, I mean, use every structure, every venue that we can get to get the word out and involve. And there are ways of, I mean, we need to get the K-12 involved.
Mm-hmm.
And one way of convincing school districts to do it, there are some charter schools that are Chicano, Latino dominated teaching curriculum. And one of the things that school districts are always afraid is that charter schools come in because they're public schools, except that they're different than the K-12 regular public schools. And when a charter school is formed, you take ADA, you take money away from the school
Right.
district. So one way perhaps is to have a series of charter schools throughout the nation that are public schools but that are, you know, doing this type of things. And believe me, as soon as they see their pocket hurting,
Yeah.
they're going to start implementing things to compete with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't want to lose the money.
Yeah.
So there are multiple ways of skinning it, you know, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You definitely have to go to the meetings because Texas Foco, they just established a committee in regards to responding to this,
Oh, good.
these bills.
But
And,
you need to meet your statement that you have in
Yeah.
terms of the plan de Los Angeles.
yeah, and make sure you have a student voice on that committee as well.
Right, right.
You just put Dallas, Austin, something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you want to?
You know,
Just
some
wanted
last-
to emphasize, you know, participation in the caucus.
Yeah.
Take your resolution,
Yeah.
you know, propose these ideas as resolution to the caucus to be taken to the,
Yeah.
both of the organizations.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've gone to Knox years before, and I know there used to be a whole caucus around K through 12.
There's still one.
That's-
Yeah, there's still one. Yeah. So that can also be an area. Just some last things. You know, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Martha. What you mentioned, and I know Carlos also touched on it. High risk kids, at risk kids. One of our biggest in Santa Monica, our most successful campaign is getting Raza studies into the continuation school. And even the demographics in my town, it's not even predominantly white anymore. It's like 30%, 40% white, 30% Raza. We're going to take over soon. And most of the kids drop out and they go to the continuation. The grand majority of the kids are Latino boys. So, and everyone pretends like they don't know that. And the school is predominantly Latino boys, and the principal's telling us, oh, please bring it out to studies, but can you not make it all Mexican, you know, like Mexican pride, because it's going to create black-brown tension. We're like, yeah, sure. But, you know, that's one thing we're saying, but we're also thinking, nah, man, our kids, our Latino boys are the majority of the kids in this school. We're gonna give them something, you know. But so it just made me think of how important Raza studies is just to the literal survival of young people.
También juvenile
I
detention.
was gonna say that, create a setting for them to build on their self-esteem and touch back on their roots, because like you said, all these kids, a lot of them are lost.
Yeah.
And we just, you know, with children's services, you know, foster home kids, they're lost. They're 17, 18 years old, about to come out of the system. And what do we have to offer? You know, it's good to sign up into school, and these kids are confused. So they need something like this to have these types of classes in the high schools.
Yeah. The asset calendar that was up, by the way, technically that's been banned. That's also a text that's been banned. Roberto Simply Rodriguez and Norma Gonzalez, one of the teachers who was told by a principal, you got to take that down, and you can't teach about it. So the Aztec calendar literally criminalized, just a footnote. And then the last thing I was thinking of is, you know, I'm just really honored that everyone's here. I encourage you guys even to network amongst yourselves. That list, we're going to go activate that and put it in our file and get that going out and activate. And I'm going to send back to Los Angeles a message of urgency that we need to keep up the work. And I'm honored by every single person in here's presence. And I thank you guys for coming. And maybe we could end with a unity clap in honor of the movement in Tucson. And each movement and every single barrio that we take this back to.
The Alamo.
And the Alamo.
Go take back right now.